This episode is brought to you by eBay. We all have that piece. The one that's so you've basically become known for it. And if you don't yet, fashionistas, you'll find it on eBay. That Miu Miu red leather bomber, the Custo Barcelona cowboy top, or that Patagonia fleece in the 2017 colorway. All these finds are all on eBay, along with millions of more main character pieces backed by authenticity guarantee. eBay is the place for pre-loved and vintage fashion. eBay, things people love.
5 a.m., I'm up with a crisp Celsius energy drink. Running 12 miles today. Grab a green juice, quick change, and head to work. Meetings, workshops. One more Celsius, no slowing down. Working late, but obviously still meeting the girls for a little dancing. Celsius. Live, fit, go. Grab a cold, refreshing Celsius at your local retailer or locate now at Celsius.com.
Hey everyone, today is Juneteenth. That means our team is taking a little bit of time off. So, there's no new episode of the show today. Instead, we're bringing you a show from our friends over at Hit Parade, another Slate podcast that tells the stories behind the chart-topping songs you know and love, or love to hate. Because it's Pride Month, we are sharing their episode about queer hitmakers, people who have dominated the charts in recent decades, whether they could be public about their sexuality or not. I will be back with more news next week. Lizzie O'Leary and the TBD team have got you covered for tomorrow. For now, here's Hit Parade.
Hey there, Hit Parade listeners. What you're about to hear is part 1 of this episode. Part 2 will arrive in your podcast feed at the end of the month. Would you like to hear this episode all at once, the day it drops? Sign up for Slate Plus. It supports not only this show, but all of Slate's acclaimed journalism and podcasts. Just go to slate.com/hitparadeplus. You'll get to hear every Hit Parade episode in full the day it arrives. Plus, Hit Parade The Bridge, our bonus episodes, with guest interviews, deeper dives on our episode topics, and pop chart trivia. Once again, to join, that's slate.com/hitparadeplus. Thanks. And now, please enjoy part 1 of this Hit Parade episode. Welcome to Hit Parade, a podcast of pop chart history from Slate Magazine about the hits from coast to coast. I'm Chris Molanphy, chart analyst, pop critic, and writer of Slate's Why Is This Song Number 1 series. On today's show, 45 years ago, in November of 1980, Motown queen Diana Ross was peaking on the charts with the second single from her hit-packed, best-selling Diana album, produced by Chic's Nile Rodgers and Bernard Edwards. Ross had already topped Billboard's Hot 100 with the album's lead single, Upside Down. For the follow-up, she went with a song that Nile Rodgers had written specifically to honor Diana's legions of drag impersonators and her larger gay following. In a move that was very bold for 1980, Rodgers and his partner Edwards titled the song I'm Coming Out. Now, the same week I'm Coming Out peaked at number 5 on the Hot 100, sitting right next to it at number 4 was a former number 1 by British rock band Queen, sung by flamboyant frontman Freddie Mercury and inspired by the disco-funk sound of Chic's Rodgers and Edwards. Queen's chart-topping smash was Another One Bites the Dust.
And another one gone, and another one gone. Another one bites the dust. Hey, hey, I'm gonna get you too. Another one bites the dust.
Now, no one remarked on it at the time, but this chart convergence was rather ironic and a bit heartbreaking. Here was Freddie Mercury, a closeted gay man, singing what was in essence a disco funk song. a very famous performer who felt he could not be fully out to Queen's rock-loving public, sitting on the charts right next to a song that was literally about coming out. This, in a nutshell, is the history of LGBTQ identity on the charts. Self-expression side by side with self-denial. Pride plus prudence. Celebration plus hesitation. Which is really too bad because queer performers are at the root of so much of the pop music we enjoy. They were there at the dawn of rock and roll. They were there at the height of glam rock and singer-songwriter pop. Of course, disco. Synth pop and new wave.
Tell me what have I done to deserve this? What have I done to deserve this?
And even alternative rock. In the 21st century, LGBTQ artists have greater freedom than ever to be who they are, even as there is still so much further to go. And the new millennium saw the first fully out gay performer with a #1 album. The answer might surprise you. I'll explain. Today on Hit Parade, we will cross intersectional identity with hit-making data to discuss the many queer performers who have topped the charts both in and out over the decades. And our story arguably pivots on one of the most unique performers in pop history, a proto-trans icon who, at a pivotal moment in both pop's evolution and queer liberation, lived his truth while scaling the pop, R&B, and dance charts. You might say he was mighty real. And that's where your Hit Parade marches today, the week ending August 19th, 1978, when You Make Me Feel Mighty Real by Sylvester reached #1 on Billboard's disco chart. It would later crack the Pop Top 40 at number 36. The gender non-conforming club singer embodied a new archetype for LGBTQ identity on the charts. How did Sylvester establish a pivot point for queer acceptance in popular music? Who were his predecessors in rock, pop, and soul, and his spiritual children? And just how long did it take for other artists to be out and proud while topping the charts? For Pride Month, we're serving realness as we explore the rainbow of LGBTQ superstars across chart history. Stick around.
Decisions made in Washington can affect your portfolio every day. But what policy changes should investors be watching? Listen to Washington Wise, an original podcast for investors from Charles Schwab, to hear the stories making news in Washington right now. Host Mike Townsend, Charles Schwab's managing director for legislative and regulatory affairs, takes a nonpartisan look at the stories that matter most to investors, including policy initiatives for retirement savings, taxes and trade, inflation concerns, the Federal Reserve, and how regulatory developments can affect companies, sectors, and even the entire market. Mike and his guests offer their perspective on how policy changes could affect what you do with your portfolio. Download the latest episode and follow at schwab.com/WashingtonWise, or wherever you listen.
This podcast is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever find yourself playing the budgeting game, shifting a little money here, a little there, just hoping it all works out? Well, with the Name Your Price tool from Progressive, you can be a better budgeter and potentially lower your insurance bill, too. You tell Progressive what you want to pay for car insurance, and they'll help you find options within your budget. Try it today at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law. Not available in all states.
Womp bom loom bom lom bom bom to the boot on root to the boot on root to the boot on root to the boot on root.
In preparation for this episode, I recently rewatched the 2023 documentary Little Richard, I Am Everything, and I highly recommend it for all music fans. For starters, the film, directed by Lisa Cortez, gives this pioneering artist, who rightly called himself the architect of rock and roll, his due. It presents the man born Richard Penniman in Macon, Georgia, as the Big Bang of rock and roll music.
He created the template for the rock and roll icon.
Sorry, y'all. It wasn't Elvis.
I'm the architect. I'm the one that started it all.
As the film articulates, Little Richard invented the way rock presented itself, musically and stylistically. He influenced performers ranging from Paul McCartney, who imitated his raucous vocals, to Mick Jagger, who learned his peacocking onstage style by watching Little Richard perform. To David Bowie, who told his producer, Nile Rodgers, that he wanted to model his pompadoured 80s persona after Little Richard. What is also so clarifying about the documentary is that it forthrightly presents Little Richard as a gay and even a gender non-conforming musical pioneer.
I wore my mother's curtains, the sheets, put on some makeup on my face.
They called him a sissy, a punk.
My dad didn't like my actions and my ways because I was gay. He put me out.
What would it do to the American mythology of rock music to say that its pioneers were Black queer people?
We are reminded that when Little Richard wrote his breakthrough single Tutti Frutti, a top 20 hit on multiple Billboard singles charts in 1956,
Womp bom loom bom lom bom bom to the boot on root to the boot on root to the boot on root.
he wasn't singing about ice cream. Tutti Frutti's original, gleefully ribald lyrics were about the joys of, quote, good booty, and about what was then considered deviant sexual practice.
Wop, wop, blue, bop, blop, and boom. If it don't fit, don't force it. You can grease it and make it easy. If you want it, you got it. Tutti Frutti, good booty.
Only after its lyrics were toned down did Tutti Frutti become a hit. However, for all that apparent queer pride on Richard's part, the documentary also makes clear that he was, sadly, a frequent dweller of the proverbial closet. Little Richard renounced his homosexuality multiple times throughout his life.
I'm not gay now, but I was gay all my life. I believe I was one of the first gay people to come out. But God let me know that he made Adam be with Eve, not Steve.
He was certainly queer in all of the senses of what that term means, but he rarely spoke about it openly, and that was where the complication came.
No, I don't want to hide. I love him.
He was very, very good at liberating other people through his example. He was not good at liberating himself.
I share all this background on Little Richard right off the top to establish a couple of key themes for this episode of Hit Parade. First of all, that rock, rhythm and blues, and indeed most of the pop music we consume is not only a culturally black art form, but a proudly queer art form. We owe LGBTQ Americans for how our popular music sounds, signifies, shimmies, and shakes.
Run to the corner, pick up my sweetie pie, see the rock and roll, baby, she's the apple of my eye. I'm ready. I'm ready.
And second, let's establish that pinpointing anyone's sexual identity, even someone as famous and seemingly out as Little Richard, is not an exact science. Most of the time, we at Hit Parade concern ourselves with the charts, which are numerical and, however imperfect, quite specific. Whereas a person's gender and sexual identity are on a spectrum. And so, in celebrating LGBTQ artistry, we will do our best to cross-reference the very specific pop charts with the sometimes murky ways artists represent themselves.
You got a fast car. We go cruise and entertain ourselves. Still ain't got a job. Now work in the market as a checkout girl.
Some LGBTQ hitmakers remain intensely private, like Tracy Chapman, who has never publicly discussed her sexual orientation or her relationships. Or certain artists have come out and then, after achieving a certain level of fame, have taken their identity private again, like Queen's Freddie Mercury. We'll talk about him in greater depth later in our show.
She's a killer queen, gunpowder gelatine, dynamite with a laser beam.
Some stars have even passed away, never affirming their orientation, such as celebrated soul vocalist Luther Vandross, who died years before friends like Patti LaBelle affirmed he was gay. Happily, in the 21st century, LGBTQ artists have felt freer to be themselves, and at earlier career stages. Current hitmaker Chappell Roan, in addition to her many openly gay-themed hit songs, has even called the pseudonym Chappell Roan her, quote, drag persona. None of this is limiting her on the charts. Roan just cracked the top 5 this year with her queer celebrating Pink Pony Club. When it comes to queer chart history, visibility matters. and performers have only grown more visible. So, let's walk through a selected hit-making history by lesbian, gay, bisexual, trans, queer, and questioning performers. Even beyond the chart toppers, the history is rich, a spectrum of legends. And we can take it back even before Little Richard, back to the pre-history of rock and roll.
If your sweetheart sends a letter...
John Alvin Ray, better known as Johnny Ray, was the ultimate pre-rock teen idol of the early 50s. Johnny Ray's 1951 hit, Cry, spent more than a dozen weeks at #1 on Billboard's singles charts in early 1952. And though his arrangements hewed closer to jazz and blues and his vocals toward traditional pop, Ray is widely considered a precursor to rock and roll. In the years just before both Little Richard and Elvis Presley, Johnny Ray was 50s teenagers' favorite singer.
And go on and cry. If your heartache seemed to hang around.
Some of Ray's romantic hits would include female pronouns. For example, my parents' favorite Johnny Ray song, the 1952 #4 hit, Walkin' My Baby Back Home.
The owls go by and they give me the eye, walking my baby back home. We stop for a while, she gives me a smile and cuddles her cheek to my chest.
But Johnny Ray is now widely understood by his biographers to have been bisexual. Only married once and fairly briefly, he was arrested more than once for propositioning would-be male lovers, including undercover police. You can't help but picture an underlying ache when listening to several of Johnny Ray's hits, like the lyrical #2 hit, The Little White Cloud Who Cried.
I went walking down by the river, feeling very sad inside, when all at once...
By the way, if you're Gen X or younger and Johnny Ray's name sounds familiar, it's because he was later invoked in the lyrics of 2 #1 hits from the 80s. He's name-checked in the first verse of the 1983 chart topper Come On Eileen by Dexy's Midnight Runners. And in the word salad that is Billy Joel's 1989 #1, We Didn't Start the Fire, Johnny Ray makes a brief cameo in the song's opening parade of boldface names.
Harry Truman, Doris Day, Red China, Johnny Ray, South Pacific, Walter Winchell.
So, Johnny Ray's place in pop history is secure, even though he could not be fully himself during his lifetime.
Well, arm in arm over meadow and farm, walking the baby home.
For an interesting comparison, let's consider another legendary 50s crooner who was also closeted but lived long enough to come out on his terms, Johnny Mathis.
Chances are you think my heart's your Valentine.
Mathis was not only a pop star, he was a chart titan. who helped establish the Hits compilation as a viable album format. A year after 1957's Chances Are hit number 1, that song, plus all of Mathis's early singles, like his exquisite It's Not For Me To Say,
it's not for me to say, you'll always care,
were compiled into the LP Johnny's Greatest Hits. By the way, the very idea of a Greatest Hits LP was more or less invented by that album. Johnny's Greatest Hits not only topped the album chart in 1958, the first such compilation to do so, it went on to spend 490 weeks, about 10 years, on the Billboard album chart, a longevity record that held until it was later beaten by Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon. Johnny Mathis was the romantic soundtrack for a generation, and he kept scoring hits into the 70s. He even went to number 1 in a duet with Denise Williams in 1978.
Too much, too little, too late to lie again with you. Too much, too little, too late to try again with you.
Privately, however, Mathis was living as a gay man. He first alluded to his gay, quote, way of life in a 1982 interview, in a comment he thought was off the record. 35 years later, Mathis finally, officially confirmed his status in his 80s. He told CBS News, People magazine, and The Washington Post, quote, I had blown this thing out of proportion about being gay, and time marches on, and now it doesn't matter, unquote. The king of romance sang those greatest hits for everybody. So, obviously, for 50s LGBTQ stars, coming out felt impossible. This state of affairs mostly persisted into the nominally more progressive 1960s. Lesley Gore, whom we discussed in our Quincy Jones episode of Hit Parade, was not out as a lesbian when she scored her string of teen pop hits, including her 1963 Quincy-produced number 1 smash, It's My Party.
It's my party and I'll cry if I want to, cry if I want to, cry if I want to. You would cry too if it happened.
However, Gore was serving realness to women of all orientations when she delivered her 1964 number 2 smash, You Don't Own Me, a landmark single in both feminist and civil rights liberation. Lesley Gore finally came out in the mid-2000s. Among the 60s British invasion bands, the Kinks, whose lead guitarist Dave Davies was bisexual, satirized dandyism in several of their hits.
Eagerly pursuing all the latest fads and trends, 'cause he's a dedicated follower of fashion. Oh, yes.
And at the end of the 60s, Dave's brother and Kinks leader Ray Davies wrote one of the earliest and most earnest songs about trans love, Lola, an incredibly catchy 1970 number 9 hit celebrating a straight man's object of infatuation who, quote, walked like a woman but talked like a man, unquote.
I'm not dumb, but I can't understand why she walked like a woman but talked like a man. La, 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 la.
Blues rock frontwoman Janis Joplin, in her brief lifetime, lived as a bisexual free love advocate, including a long-running off-and-on relationship with Haight-Ashbury counterculture figure Peggy Caserta. Joplin's hits, from her 1968 Big Brother and the Holding Company single Down on Me, through her 1971 solo smash Me and Bobby McGee, embodied personal and sexual freedom when she sang them.
Looks like everybody in this whole round world. Down on me.
And Billy Preston, who got his break in the early 60s as a backing musician in Little Richard's band. Famously, he backed the Beatles during the 1969 sessions that generated their Let It Be LP. Preston was the only artist ever co-credited on a Beatles #1 hit for his keyboard solo on Get Back.
Get back, Joe.
Billy Preston struggled with his homosexuality all his life, fearful it would imperil both his career and his ties to the Black church. Nonetheless, he scored multiple hits as a solo artist in the early 70s, including the flamboyantly funky #1s Will It Go Round in Circles and Nothing from Nothing.
Nothing from nothing, leave nothing. And I'm not stuffing. Believe you me. Don't you remember?
Perhaps the most significant queer 60s hitmaker in terms of her public status was Dusty Springfield. A hitmaker on both sides of the Atlantic, Springfield was one of the first British invasion hitmakers to scale the US charts in the wake of the Beatles' 1964 breakthrough.
Started something, don't you see? And ever since we met, you had a hold on me. No matter what you do, I only wanna be with you.
By the late 60s, as she was scoring top 10 hits like her soul classic Son of a Preacher Man or her torch ballad hit You Don't Have to Say You Love Me, Dusty was being hounded by the music press over why she was never seen in the company of a significant other.
You don't have to say you love me, just speak close at hand. You don't have to stay forever, I will understand. Believe.
Privately, Springfield was in a long-term domestic partnership with American folk pop singer Norma Tanega. Finally, in 1970, Dusty Springfield decided to address the rumors head-on. She told the Evening Standard, quote, "I know I'm perfectly as capable of being swayed by a girl as by a boy. More and more people feel that way, and I don't see why I shouldn't," unquote. With this bold comment, LGBTQ historians credit Springfield as the first British musician to come out as gay.
Just because you born, just because of you, just because you born.
But Dusty Springfield did not have an easy time after her revelation. She spent the next decade plus fighting substance abuse, singing backup for other artists, and struggling to revive her career. Nonetheless, she did score her biggest American hit in 1988 in a duet with Neil Tennant on the Pet Shop Boys' What Have I Done to Deserve This?, which went all the way to #2 on the Hot 100.
What have I done to deserve this? What have I done to deserve this? What have I?
Since you went away, I've been hanging around. I've been wondering why.
So, notwithstanding her struggles, that made Dusty Springfield one of the few LGBTQ artists of the late 20th century to achieve a major hit after coming out. More in a moment.
3 months, we've, of course, all observed massive shifts in foreign aid. And undoubtedly, these shifts have just made a massive impact on civil society, both nonprofit and for-profit actors across the different countries where Accountability Lab is working. I just want to hear from our different country directors in the countries where they're working. What have you observed? What are the biggest changes you've seen?
Hey, Kristen, how's it tracking?
With Carvana Value Tracker.
What else?
Oh, it's tracking. In fact, Value Surge Alert trucks up 2.5%. Vans down 1.7%.
Just as predicted.
Mm-hmm.
So, we gonna...
I don't know. Could sell, could hold.
The power to always know our car's worth.
Exhilarating, isn't it?
Tracking.
Always know your car's worth with Carvana Value Tracker.
PMS, pregnancy, menopause. Being a woman is a lot. Ollie supports you and yours with expert solutions for every age and life stage. They just launched 2 new products exclusively at Walmart. Period Hero combats bloat, mood swings, and more during PMS. And Balance Perimeno to support hormonal balance, mood, and metabolism during perimenopause. Grab yours at ollie.com.
Ollie!
These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
2 70s movements made popular music more fluid than ever in both gender presentation and sexual identity: glam rock and disco. However, queer artists were more integral to disco. When it came to glam, truth be told, most glam rockers, no matter how androgynous or gender-bending, were straight. From T-Rex's Mark Bolan to the members of Roxy Music. Although it's complicated. We'll cover David Bowie later. There was, however, one legitimate LGBTQ glam rock pioneer, even though he wasn't much of a chart star: Joe Bryant. Jobriath was marketed as the first gay rock star. Indeed, the man born Bruce Wayne Campbell was the first openly gay rock musician signed to a major label. And Elektra Records pulled out all the stops to hype Jobriath's 1973 debut, including a giant billboard of a near-naked Jobriath in Times Square. In interviews, Jobriath even threw shade at glam rock stars like David Bowie and Mark Bolan for only pretending to be sexually ambiguous. Quote, "I'm a true fairy," Jobriath said. "I'm no pretender," unquote. But, to say the least, the world was not ready. Jobriath suffered an instant homophobic backlash, and his 2 albums, 1973's Jobriath and 1974's Creatures of the Street, both failed to chart. Jobriath would die only a decade later, one of the earliest casualties of AIDS. Nonetheless, he inspired later generations of performers, including Morrissey, and his florid style echoed in the work of other contemporaneous glam acts like the New York Dolls and Queen. Disco was a much more fertile arena for 70s LGBTQ creativity. Indeed, the whole disco scene and subculture were fundamentally pioneered by gay DJs, tastemakers, and club patrons. As we discussed in our remix episode of Hit Parade, the art form of the seamless DJ 12-inch mix was essentially invented in a gay Fire Island nightclub by proto-remixer Tom Moulton.
Can hear the man count. You know, the world would fare a little bit better.
And disco artists of any orientation knew they were catering to a club audience rooted in the gay community. To earn the title Queen of Disco, which at different times was bestowed upon both Gloria Gaynor and Donna Summer, these women recorded dance anthems that spoke to the gay audience, like I Feel Love or I Will Survive. Of course, these LGBTQ anthems would then cross over to the larger straight audience, which is what made the Village People so amusing and ironic. When Macho Man cracked the top 40 in the summer of 1978, peaking at number 25, it seemed like the Village People were a fluke or another disco-era novelty, a group formed by a pair of French producers, Jacques Morali and Henry Belolo, to specifically target gay audiences and simultaneously satirize gay stereotypes. Famously, the Village People sextet dressed as a biker, cowboy, cop, Native American, construction worker, and soldier. And while only a couple of group members were gay, one of them, American Indian singer Felipe Rose, was recruited at a New York City gay club, the project was, at first, received as a witty gay culture in-joke. And then
It's fun to stay at the YMCA. It's fun to stay at the YMCA. They have everything for your men to enjoy.
the Village People's third album, Cruisin', generated a positively massive crossover pop hit, YMCA, that climbed all the way to number 2 on the Hot 100 in February 1979. The Cruisin' LP reached the top 3 on the album chart and went platinum. It is now triple platinum. For a brief window at the end of the 70s, the Village People were one of the biggest pop groups in the country.
In the Navy, yes, you can sail the 7 seas. In the Navy, yes, you can put your mind at ease. In the Navy, come on now, people, make a stand. In the Navy.
It is debatable how much Middle America embraced the gay meta story at the root of the Village People phenomenon, or got the joke. To this day, Village People singer Victor Willis, who played the cop role in the group and co-wrote several of their hits, fervently denies that YMCA ever was a gay anthem. The fact that the song is now a wedding and bar mitzvah dance staple and one of President Donald Trump's favorite rally songs indicates that it long ago became a totem of the straight world, divorced from its original queer identity. I would argue that the more path-breaking, pivotal disco hitmaker who crossed over from the LGBTQ world was a solo artist, an iconoclastic, cross-dressing singer. By the way, that was the term of art in those days, who tried everything from gospel to folk, R&B to rock, before settling on disco. He eventually became a dance music icon, but on his very first released recordings, this soloist sounded like this. This cover of Neil Young's Southern Man is being vocalized by the man born Sylvester James Jr. in Watts, California in 1947. He eventually went just by a mononym, his first name, Sylvester. Sylvester had star quality from a very young age, even as he fought his mother and stepfather, who did not approve of his sexual identity or his femme presentation. Raised singing gospel in the Pentecostal church, Sylvester relocated in his early 20s to San Francisco, where he became the star attraction of the Cockettes, a multiracial drag ensemble. A series of performances in New York City won Sylvester the opportunity to record a demo album back in San Francisco. Among the songs Sylvester demoed was Superstar, the Delaney and Bonnie song made famous by the Carpenters. After he broke from the Cockettes, and with the demo not leading anywhere, Sylvester and his manager assembled a group of backing players, all straight white men, whom they called the Hot Band. Here's Sylvester with the Hot Band covering Procol Harum's A Whiter Shade of Pale. Through it all, Sylvester did not hide either his homosexuality or his voice, though he insisted on male pronouns. Had he lived into the 21st century, music historians suspect he might have used she, her, or they, them. Sylvester was always quintessentially himself, sparkly and dressed to the nines, even when fronting the Hot Band. After 2 albums, the Hot Band broke away from Sylvester, whose diva behavior alienated the group. It took 3 years and several more lineup changes in Sylvester's accompanists before he finally pivoted toward dance music. By the way, a fun side note, the backing singers Sylvester eventually agreed to work with were a pair of big-voiced, plus-size vocal dynamos named Martha Wash and Izora Rhodes. They renamed themselves 2 Tons of Fun, and later, the Weather Girls, who, speaking of gay anthems, would eventually record the camp classic It's Raining Men. But I digress. After Sylvester signed to Fantasy Records to issue his solo debut, his first chart hit came in 1977, when his funky, horn-inflected R&B single Down, Down, Down reached number 18 on Billboard's disco chart. Though he still sang in falsetto, Sylvester presented himself on the cover of his self-titled debut album in male attire, in an effort to cross over with a mainstream audience. Nonetheless, Sylvester became a regular performer at gay clubs and gay events, including the birthday party of iconic San Francisco gay politician Harvey Milk. By the time of his second LP, 1978's acclaimed Step 2, Sylvester made his gender presentation purposefully inscrutable. He was trying on glittery female attire on stage, alternating it with butch signifiers like leather pants. Pitchfork later wrote, quote, "Sylvester defied categorization at every opportunity and shrugged off questions intended to pin him down. Quote, look, dear, being gay means absolutely nothing except to straight people," unquote. The Step 2 album proved to be Sylvester's breakthrough. He got bigger on the charts with all audiences when he got queerer. The LP spawned two huge hits. Dance, parentheses, Disco Heat, not only topped the disco chart, it climbed to number 4 on the R&B chart and even number 19 on the pop chart by November of '78. But it was the single's flip side. In clubs and on the disco chart, it was considered the A-side. That established Sylvester's legend, a high-energy dance classic and a queer landmark. Sylvester and songwriter James Wyrick called it "You Make Me Feel," parentheses, mighty real. The secret weapon behind Mighty Real was Sylvester's friend Patrick Cowley, a producer who, inspired by Donna Summer's Eurodisco classic I Feel Love, remixed the single into a synthesized frenzy. But Sylvester also brought his A-game to the vocal, capturing the lyrics' liberated euphoria. You Make Me Feel, Mighty Real, reached number 20 on the R&B chart and returned Sylvester to the pop top 40, peaking at number 36 in February 1979. By then, the Step 2 LP had reached number 28 on the pop album chart and went gold. Sylvester moved quickly to record a follow-up album, 1979's Stars, on which he worked even more closely with Patrick Cowley. They went deeper into electronic dance music. But for Star's first single, Sylvester went with a cover of a hit that was already a torch song classic. I Who Have Nothing was originally a hit for R&B veteran Ben E. King. His version reached number 29 in 1963. 7 years later, Tom Jones recorded an even more theatrical version that hit number 14.
I who have no one, adore you and want you so. I'm just a no one.
In Sylvester's hands, I Who Have Nothing became a dance floor drama and another club smash. It also, just barely, became Sylvester's third straight top 40 pop hit when it peaked at number 40 in May of '79. Interestingly, as Sylvester's hits cycled through the radio show American Top 40, host Casey Kasem did not have much to say about them or Sylvester himself. But when I Who Have Nothing was in its last week on the chart, Casey counted it down with some interesting color commentary.
This is Casey in Hollywood, and this song is by the man who posed for his high school yearbook photo dressed as a woman. Ever since his early teens, Sylvester, who's used only one name for as long as he can remember, has been an adoring fan of women blues singers from the early 30s. He started collecting the records of Ethel Merman, Billie Holiday, and Bessie Smith. And he came to love these women so much that he learned to mimic their singing styles. And by the time Sylvester was in high school, he'd taken to dressing like his favorite singers for parties and talent and beauty contests too, which he often won. And that's how he dressed for his graduation picture, as a woman. Well, using his own voice, he's been creating some new disco standards. Here's his latest, at number 40, I Who Have Nothing, Sylvester.
This is what mainstream acceptance sounded like in 1979. That week would be the last Sylvester ever spent in the Pop Top 40. As the 70s turned to the 80s, he became a denizen of the dance charts. Sylvester continued working with the innovative Patrick Cowley, eventually signing to Cowley's Megatone label, and making tracks that kept scoring on the disco chart. Among their collaborations were the 1982 hits Do You Wanna Funk, a number 4 club hit, and Don't Stop, which hit number 3 on the club chart. Not long after Sylvester scored these 1982 hits, Patrick Cowley would die at age 32, another early casualty of AIDS. As for Sylvester himself, he too would succumb to the disease 6 years later, passing from AIDS-related complications in December 1988. His funeral in San Francisco's Castro district, which Sylvester had planned himself down to the kimono outfit he wore in his coffin, was packed with mourners.
Love me forever, take me to heaven.
Sylvester remains revered in the gay community and among dance music aficionados. His most famous single, You Make Me Feel Mighty Real, has been reinterpreted multiple times, including by Scottish singer and gay rights advocate Jimmy Somerville, who took his version to number 5 in the UK in 1990. And acclaimed American house music vocalist Byron Stingley of 10 City, who took his cover to number 1 on the Dance Club Play chart in 1998. More importantly, important, Sylvester was a pivotal figure in the mainstreaming of LGBTQ and gender nonconforming artists on the charts. After Sylvester, drag performers and queer singers of various stripes enjoyed greater pop acceptance, even as homophobia and the AIDS crisis kept many of them from coming out publicly. In the second part of our show, we'll cover performers from the 70s, 80s, and beyond who navigated both the closet and the charts. When we come back, I'll walk through my study of LGBTQ performers who topped the charts both in and out of the closet, celebrating hitmakers who found the courage to be loud and proud. Non-Slate Plus listeners will hear the rest of this episode in 2 weeks. For now, I hope you've been enjoying this episode of Hit Parade. Our show was written, edited, and narrated by Chris Molanphy. That's me. My producer is Kevin Bendis. Our supervising producer is Joel Meyer. And Slate's editor-in-chief is Hillary Fry. Check out Slate's roster of shows at slate.com/podcasts. You can subscribe to Hit Parade wherever you get your podcasts, in addition to finding it in the Slate Culture feed. If you're subscribing on Apple Podcasts, please rate and review us while you're there. It helps other listeners find the show. Thanks for listening, and I look forward to leading the Hit Parade back your way. We'll see you for part 2 in a couple of weeks. Until then, keep on marching on the one. I'm Chris Molanphy.